I get it. They didn't do it for me yesterday, so they got it right today. But this is great to see everyone here, and just from this side to that side, and the middle of me, and all those who are watching and have been with us for the last 2 days. It's fantastic to be here at the closing. I almost don't want it to close. We have a UN General Assembly week, and what we say we do is speed date, because of one thing to another, it's back to back. But this has been a continuous stream of feedback that I've been getting in the UN. And it's from people, not just from this room, but people who actually come back into the UN and say, we were just at this event, and did you hear about this idea? Did you hear the conversation that we had with 4 different people, and it was with one president, and he's still going? And it was fantastic feedback. Africa was certainly in the room. Africa was in New York this week. So thank you very much for making that happen. The African Union, our speakers, the Gabi Circle, business leaders, attendees, and the Mayor of New York, those of you who heard him yesterday, as well as our sponsors and organizers, they didn't just come to the event. I think they truly came with ideas that they want us to take out of this event. Everything that I've heard today is something that can be followed up on. And we hope that the rooms that we had given at the back there that would help that, and I think so. I think that we didn't want this to stop in New York. We want to go back to Africa, and of course the network across the world, because Africa doesn't stop at our borders. What we intend to do is to be the center of the world, and if you look at all the maps except one, that one country does, we are the center of the world. We are the birthplace. We are certainly Mother Africa, and nobody forget that. No apologies. So it's really fantastic to be here. I want to thank our Secretary General as well, because when this idea came, and Strive Matthew and I said, well, let's try to do this and do it with the African Union for 2063, but also 2030, and that gatherings happen here every year, and we need to be a central part of that, because actually the agenda for the international community and development is Africa. And without it, I often say that we wouldn't have a paycheck. We would like to do people out of the paycheck, but maybe a paycheck that does things differently, and that's partner, and that says that we exited from that development to one in which there was a great partnership of building out Africa, of building out the rest of our partnerships. We're halfway through to the Sustainable Development Goals, and when we negotiated them, the African Union was the first of the regions, and probably the only of the regions, that did its 10-year plan to actually implement the 2030 agenda. If anyone reads the 2063 agenda, it's actually more ambitious than the international agenda. So that 10-year plan, for which we now have the second one, is really an important metric for us to see how we're doing. And when we all landed in New York, or you all landed in New York this week to do that, we had a miserable 15% pass, which is not pass, it's failure. And that's all we had got of the target. So we've got 7 years to go, and that's not very long. It's just round the corner. And that summit, reflecting on the progress, what we really wanted to focus on were the solutions. Many solutions were spoken about here. Many solutions were spoken about on the podium when each head of state has given their statement to the world. And many were spoken in some of those places and spaces that we brought stakeholders together across the weekend, from women's groups to young people to people with disabilities, others that are not seen in many of our discussions. So there was a global moment, and that for us was vital for Africa. The continent, of course, we've heard, we face multiple challenges, and there's enough grief to talk about, but I think we need to own it. And it is with the potentials that we show here that we create those islands of stability, and we just grow them. So we grow out the conflict, we grow out all the misery that people talk about, rather than when are we going to invest in Africa. No, we already started. We grow it out. I was listening to our creatives and the garment industry. It's amazing what you're doing in Rwanda. And I was thinking, do people my age probably remember when H&M came about, but that should be a point when Ashanti, when did that come about? We should all remember it and think that this is not about the here and now. It's about those that will be using it year after year after year, and it's a really big name that no one thinks about, oh, well, this is from Africa. No, this is a global brand. Not many people say H&M Sweden. It's H&M and it's global. So that's exactly what we want to see with the brands that we have here. So as we're drawing the curtain on the second global Africa Business Initiative, the Unstoppable Africa that we want, we were looking at the name and saying, do we take away Unstoppable and put something else on it? No, I don't think so. I think that, we want a certain bit of aggro, right? We want people to feel a little uncomfortable when we say unstoppable, and here we come. Because this is it, we're big, we're noisy, we're beautiful, and we're going to be unstoppable, and we have no apologies to it. So we're still Unstoppable Africa. And we already got a commitment. Yesterday, I got a commitment from one of our big institutions in Africa to say that when I said to them, maybe we should prepare this meeting in Africa, rather than in our offices in New York, and we draw on the UN system. The UN system is also in Africa, so why don't we prepare this meeting in Africa and have a meeting in Africa before we come to the world? And we have one of our big institutions in Africa who has said they will bankroll that. So I want to thank people for believing in Africa and that we'll do it. And we will do it together with the African Union, but we'll do it at the side of the second African Union meeting. We have one at the beginning of the year, we have one in the middle of the year that talks about what we do at the regions. And this is really important for us. So whichever country they're in, that's where we're going. And so we'll see you there before we come to September. It'll probably be in July. And I know that my minders are probably saying, why is she talking about this? Well, I just want to make sure I share the secret with you all, because I want you there. It's not just to New York we come. Wherever we are in Africa, let's go, and let's make that happen. I know that you know that we've discussed a whole range of issues that will define our trajectory, and we did focus on many that matter for us to get into the future: food systems, energy, the IT. But for me, the one that meant the most was about the creatives, because this is where women and young people are. It's where technology is going to come, and it's going to take us beyond the moon. But it is the place where we have never really recognized the GDP and the creatives. And so let's honor that, let's do that. It makes money, and it's really good. And you do it having fun. It's hard work, I know. It's hard work. But, this is a part of the world where I think my brother here said to me that his kids told him that, it's really cool to be Nigerian now. I think many of us didn't, a little while ago, it wasn't so cool to be Nigerian. We all knew it because we were all very defensive about it. 1 in 4 Nigerians, we are Nigerian and we're not going away anywhere. And you saw us on the stage yesterday and we're here today. And his kids are saying it's cool to be Nigerian in the world today. And why is that? Top selling musicians are? Thank you. And so that's the story we want, is that when everyone points to Africa, they point to our success. And as I said, we have a lot of work to do on the others. We own the other problems that we have. We're not good at keeping the peace right now. We're not good at protecting our women. We are not good at democracy. We're so many things we're not good at, but we are going to get better because there is this community that will check those balances, and we will move the other way, giving people an alternative to it. Because if we invested in people to begin with, we never would have had Boko Haram. We just wouldn't have had. I grew up in Maiduguri. I went to school. I'm not a terrorist. I'm the Deputy Secretary General of Nigeria. Please. And we can say that all around, from Somalia, to DRC. We can tell our stories, and our stories are great. So it's been a real pleasure to see that we are going to bring to life many of the aspirations that our heads of state and government have actually put on paper, and we are going to take them into a reality. We're also putting fire under the feet of our leaders. I think we saw leaders from Africa in this room in the last 2 days that really showed us that they could step up to the plate. And we've had leaders that we know who may not have been in this room who are stepping up. So in the 54, we got some. And if they can spread the virus of good leadership, that would be amazing, because then, 54 countries would stand up, and we would stand with them, behind them, in front of them, propelling them, whatever it is. Then leadership would have followership, and not when they look back and they wonder where we all are. Well, we're not going down their road. That's a major message to so much leadership that isn't delivering for the world today, isn't delivering in Africa. Unconstitutional changes are unconstitutional changes. But we do have to ask why, right? Especially when they happen to be popular and everyone comes on the street and says this is really good. Well, I tell you, I come from a country where we had coups. When they said, fellow Nigerians, we ran inside and we waited to see who was coming, and then slowly, slowly we emerged. But to see that there are coups d'etats on the continent today where people are celebrating, we have to check what it is that we're doing wrong, because surely that's not a good thing. So I hope that message goes back to everyone and that we do that. I want to end by saying that we all have a lot of work and commitments to do. Individually, just think about what it is that you're taking home, what it is that you will ask the networks that you all belong to join you in doing. Not everything can we do alone. We have to carry people with us. That's the commitment I'm making, is that I go back and I say, this is what I heard from Africans to all the resident coordinators that I have in the 54 countries. And each one of them has a country team that maybe has 20, 30, 40 UN agencies. Our job is to convene for the progress of Africa. It is to convene to 2063 for 2030. And so that's what I'd like to think, that when we go back, we will convene for many of the conversations that you've had today to make them happen. And we'll come back next year to say that we harvested this from this event. Let it not just be an event where we network, that's important, where we talk, where we eat together, and let it be something that says, well, I can tell you that out of this, I signed up this deal. I met up this person who opened up the market for me in this country. And when I was in Rwanda the other day, a lot of young people saying to me, could you please open the market to Nigeria? Because that's where the creatives for fashion, for music, if I can sell that there, then I've got business going. So let's actually cross these borders that don't necessarily need you to fly across them. And I know the airline thing is not working too well, but it will. We don't need to. If we get the technology right, we will cross borders without doing so. We will plug and play Africa the way it should be. Sander, Zain, Folly, I didn't have a male name to call. And I have no apologies for that either, because these are three fantastic women who stood up and worked 24/7. And I was a really hard taskmaster. I'm a dreadful person to work for. I really am. And I'm very sorry. And, forgive me. But, I will do it again, because we deserve the best in Africa. We will not, as they say, Nigeria no dey come last. So we're not going to be last. We're going to be first. We're going to be center. And I just want to say that women's leadership, it's not about numbers. It's about the capacity, the intellect, the guts, the inclusion that they all use to bring all of us along. And so to men, it's not shoving you out. It's like I said last night, just move a little to the right and we'll step in. And that partnership will take us further. It'll take us further because we will end conflicts. It'll take us further because we will understand better how we take everyone with us, and not just a few. It'll take us further because we will show the depth and the breadth of what we can do in Africa. So, men, you wouldn't be here if a woman hadn't given birth to you. It was tough, and they do, and you're wonderful, and we love you. But, take us with you. So on that note, thank you so much. I don't want to leave the stage because it means I have to say, goodbye, but I'll say to be continued next year and the year after and the year after day after day. Thank you.